Hello everyone, welcome back to the second episode of the series. I hope you will love it. Across the country, famous spoiled by millionaire Jungkook, he was having a best night of his life while having drinks and flirting with some random girls and boys. But a sudden phone call from his father ruined the mood. Jungkook gone and walked out of the freezing New York air. He could see his breath when he answered the phone rudely. What, Dad? Tonight is not is like my whole night free. Well, his father, Mr. Jian, started. Soon you will have another day free from work. You are getting married next week. Jungkook couldn't help but laugh out loud. His stomach hurt and he couldn't stop. That's really funny, Dad. Why would you say something like that? Jungkook was able to say after his laughter stopped. Son, I'm serious. You are 27 and you need to grow up. I know it's not traditional in the slightest, but it's important. I will send you everything about him. He is a sweet boy and you will meet him in a few days. If you don't marry him, we might lose everything. Mr. Jian hung up on his son. Jungkook wanted to scream at everything and punch at anything. He felt like his whole life is ruined. Marriage wasn't just something you did to save your a business. There has to be another way. Jumped in his car and drove off. Once he was past city limits and in a more rural area, he pressed on the gas hard. His expensive sports car reached almost triple the original 30 miles per hour. Driving this fast moved his aesthetic. It made him feel wild and free. Jungkook wasn't able to drive like a madman in city, but out whenever he was, he could be a daredevil. He drove like this for a half an hour until red and blue light accompanying a siren disturbed his fun. Jungkook slowed down and pulls over to the side. He lets out a sigh of frustration and rests his head on the steering wheel. A knock on the window indicated that the officer was ready to speak. The minute the window was open, the officer spoke. Look at this freak hick speeding. Shall I call your father? Jungkook rolled his eyes and looked at the officer, who happened to be his elder brother, Jeon Namjoon. Out of all the Jeon children, these two look most similar. Namjoon and Jungkook both have silky hair, brown eyes, and tall stature. stature. The brothers styled their hair differently. Namjoon had a tight haircut close to a buzz cut. Jungkook, our cook, to his family, has a clean face and long hair that is always pushed back tight in a man bun. Jungkook didn't say anything and just got out of the car. He knew his brother would want him to perform a sobriety test for fun. Jungkook had one beer over a night an hour ago. He was far from drunk. Namjoon knew that his brother likes to drive fast when he is stressed out. What is wrong with this time, Cook? June asked his disturbed brother. Dad, Cook didn't know how to continue. He is marrying me off to this random boy for no reason except that it's important to the business. Freaking arranged marriage. Who does this anymore? Young It was obvious that JK was pissed. June had no clue what to do. He couldn't believe his father could do something like this to his family. June escaped embarrassing his younger brother with a taste and just shoved Jungkook into the back of his cab cop car, claiming that he was unfit to drive. He knew his brother would go to the terrible places, random fights and alcohol. Now that Jungkook is furious, so June drove Cook back to the station and locked him in a cell. Despite his brothers fighting, other than June, Jungkook had five other siblings. Namjoon was the oldest at 32 years old. He has been married since the age of 25 to Seokjin, a worldwide handsome Korean man. They both have two children, one a 3-year-old boy and a 6-month-old baby girl. The next set of siblings are twins men, Yoongi and Hoseok, age 30. They are not look alike, you can tell apart, but they have some same features. They both had dark blonde hair, almost brown, and the trademark jeon brown eyes they got from their father. Yoongi was the manager. Mr. Jeon mentioned to Taehyung Hoseok was the opposite of his twins in attitude. He always had a permanent scroll. He travels the world, but his family is unsure why and where he goes. Minho is the first boy of the family. At the age of 28, he became the popular punchologist. He is also married to Kim Sungmin, a wealthy lawyer. He has dark brown hair and blue eyes like his mother. Jungkook is the fifth child of Jeon and Mrs. Jeon and the only one to interested in the family business. Namjoon, holding on to Jungkook's phone, looked at the text from his father. He read about this mysterious boy. Kim Taehyung, he saw a beautiful young boy with deep red hair, light pink, and that covered his nose and cheeks, and the richest toy eyes. His, he was truly stunning, especially from Taehyung's expression. Taehyung's eyes is in the picture held no life. He looked as if his soul was killed years ago. With the picture was a file of his personal information. With a legal document, the personal information file showed how much his father made, where Taehyung lived, his education, and past jobs. He was surprised at the amount of shows Taehyung performed in. He would have loved to look Taehyung up when he got home and also saw his wife Jen. Upon opening the legal document, Namjoon discovered the truth behind arranged marriage. The young boy's father's will. If Taehyung doesn't complete the form, would sue Taehyung. This will also reveal that Taehyung's father didn't leave Taehyung a fraction of his wealth. Taehyung had absolutely nothing. The Kim wealth was left to Kim's current girlfriend Ruby. By the time June was done reading, his brother Jungkook was asleep, most likely dreaming of a life without an arranged marriage. A clinking of keys against metal woke Jungkook. His neck was stiffy from the hard mattress in the holding cell. His eyes burned from sleeping in his contents. Through his sleepy eyes, JK sees His brother Namjoon opening the door and letting him go. Cook groaned and walked out of the cell without saying anything. Another officer was with his brother, handed the keys to his expensive car back to Jungkook. JK ripped it off from the officer's hand and stormed off. He was still irritated. It seems like only drinking could solve his issues at this point. With his phone back in his custody, Jungkook looked at the time and the date. He had to go back to work today. He groaned and drove away from his brother's small town. JK first passes streets and then passes family home that seems to come closer together with the closer he gets to the city. Eventually, the houses become so close that they become apartment. The buildings grow taller and the scenes becomes more urban. He had and will always prefer the city. The countryside provided nothing for him. He enjoyed falling asleep to the loud cars and occasionally police car. He strangely enjoyed the traffic he encountered every morning. To him, traffic was the only constant in his daily business. Every day presented a new challenge at his recently every day presented a new challenge at his recently initiated company. Jeon Industries was an important business in this family, built from the ground. Cook's grandfather worked diligently to create the multi-million company before passing it over down to his son, who made it $1 billion company. The company manufactured machines, part of a variety of uses and other companies. He creates parts, parts for other machines in factories, car parts, and even parts for important science technology. It wasn't well known for what it makes, but rather the handsome owners that each run the business. Mr. Jian never forced his first son or any of his children into the business. He was a gentle father and prefers to let them to do what they loved. That's how he ended up with his children in multiple different fields. This worked in his favor as only one child was interested in taking over the business, the fifth child, Jungkook. He would have hated to have choose one child over another. He, is, he certainly was gentle, loving father, but in the business world, he was ruthless and cutthroat. cutthroat. It was for the better for his company because now it is one of the wealthiest company in the world. Cook was very similar to his father in this respect, cutthroat to become the best. However, this never stopped him when he was outside of work. He is often called rude and arrogant and egotistical. Jungkook was never one to keep long-term boyfriends. Jungkook's definition of long-term was a month with no labels. His main reason was that no one could keep up with him. Some found that his behavior isn't acceptable. Jian Jungkook had a childhood with his loving family. Lovely childhood with his loving family. He had many friends, although all but one was fake, and he never had one boyfriend break his heart into a million pieces. Other excuse his behavior by saying that he was the youngest child and never received the full attention a child needed. However, there was a marked line between it. It was more than just people wanting to use him because he is rich. Overall, he was responsible enough to be a CEO of an important company and gain lots of respect. JK just had issue giving back the respect to others. Jungkook pulls onto his special CEO parking spot and stormed onto the building. It was a pretty tall building with such a large company when many people are required for many works. The CEO's office was located at the very top, and the factories that create the production and warehouses are located all around the United States. His private elevator wishes him upstairs to the top floor. Jungkook was really in mood for strong liquor, something that will make him forget about his father's demand. He had to accept it if he didn't want to lose the company, which he didn't. His father's demand did not require him to be nice to be his future wife. He will surely make his life miserable. This boy was most to be gold digger that drills a hole into his father's soft heart and daddy's little princess that will get anything he asks for. Halfway through the morning, his co-workers irritated him at their every word, mostly his PA. He was very lazy and forgetful today. When he came in the third request for coffee and split it on Jungkook's wood floor, Jungkook had enough. Mr. Bone, your file. You have 3 days to get your affairs in order and find a replacement, Jungkook said angrily. He is tired of lazy workers who cannot meet his standards for working. JK didn't have much work to do the day. He sends his emails, signed papers, talked to partners. This left time for his thoughts of marriage to creep in. The thoughts on his future wife, his lips crawl into a ugly sneer. Just thinking about that whatever that boy is, his whole life, Jungkook was taught to be independent, to never rely on someone other than himself. It was almost like a family motto. He doesn't need some boy validating into his life and ruining his routine, the comfort JK has created. JK was also never want to share what he has earned. He holds his with pride, and with pride comes stubbornness. JK paid for his apartment once he had enough money. Now he has to share his hard work. If it were up to him, he would give his nothing and leave the boy to live for himself. JK tried to stop thinking about him, but this mysterious boy that Cook has to marry keeps popping into his head, and he keeps getting irritated. His father also has not stopped texting Jungkook, informing about the boy, as well as pictures that Jungkook refused to look at. It was making him even more distracted than what he normally was. Jungkook doesn't need a picture to see that the boy is just another basic rich daddy's precious boy. By the 20th text, Jungkook took his phone and threw across the room. Finally, the text stopped. On the other side of the country, they woke up the next morning in the bed, daring to see Mr. Jian again. He felt embarrassed the other night. He preferred not to express his emotion. That is how people get hurt and manipulated, like how his father did to him. He always keeps a cool, collected face to never reveal the inner turmoil that shakes in his shakes him to his core. Still in his pajamas, he put on a silk robe. Still in his pajamas, he put on a silk robe that found years ago left in his mother's closet. Downstairs, Mr. Jian is wearing the same clothes as yesterday. However, they were not wrinkled, so he must have borrowed Taehyung's father's clothes. My dear Tae, cries Mrs. Lee. Good morning, what would you like to eat? She asked. Taehyung seems way too prepared for that. Just learning yesterday and that his granny Mrs. Lee will not be with Tae. Now Taehyung is moving without her. Tae is still waking up. Granny, can you make me some strong coffee? I didn't really have appetite. Mrs. Lee nodded started to make the coffee. Good morning, Mr. Kim. Mr. Jian said respectfully, I hope you had a good night's sleep. I want you to inform you that we should be leaving by the end of this week. Once in New York, we will help you to move into my son's apartment and get you settled. This is when Mr. Jian gently put his hand on the top of Taehyung's. Taehyung wanted to flinch away, but once his hand actually touched his, they felt relaxed. This was how a father is supposed to treat his children with care. I can give you number of my son Yogi, so he can evaluate you other over the phone and start setting your auditions once you are settled. My son Minho is also a penologist and trained therapist if you ever need someone to talk to. He can't lie and say that therapy would be a bad idea. He has enough realization that he, in fact, really did need therapy. He suffered from attacks and that being about strong episodes of anxiety. He knows that he must have lasting effect of from 10 years of physical, mental and emotional hurt from his so-called father. They could use someone to talk to. They also had a platform suffering his emotions deep down inside him, hoping that they would die off. For 10 years his anger for his father grew and grew. He never had a chance to act upon it. So he puts those emotions towards healthier things like his characters. He was never allowed to date or have a boyfriend, so he put his that repressed desired energy onto his dancing and on stage relationships. He feels like he barely have enough time to cry at home and even react to everything shoved his way. So during emotional scenes on stage, they let it out of everything that has happened to him. He became a phenomenal actor. Honestly, after years of acting like someone else and repressive emotions, they felt like a blank slate. They spent the rest of the day packing alone in his room. He started with his bedroom appliance and makeup, since that would be the easiest to organized into boxes. Only a few days earlier was he doing this with his father's things. Good thing he has so many leftover boxes. Taehyung had no choice rather accepting it or he have to face lawsuit and he neither have money for that nor energy. Next they move on to clothes. He didn't have much. What he had he purchased with his own money or stole from his mother's closet after she left. There was never ended things. His father was not a huge part of his life while growing up. It was always him and his mother. Sometimes his dad was present in the background. Mr. Kim never cared too much for the little red-haired boy. That's all changed with his mother left the house, just leaving father with son alone. His room also didn't have many items to value. Years ago, his room was filled with small home decor things that he collected throughout his childhood. His father one night smashed a majority of it. Now he keeps what is truly valuable to him in a box under the bed. These were his pictures of family, memorable items from past shows, and most important, a soft pink blanket that his mother knitted for Tae before he was born. This item was one of the most treasured to Taehyung. Tae was done packing by late at night. He didn't eat much that day. Around midday, Mrs. Lee brought a grilled cheese sandwich and they ate as he worked. He wasn't very hungry, but he still wanted to treat himself for all of the hard work he did today. In the kitchen pantry on the side door, he found his hide of chocolate, favorite candy, and after his father died, they went out and brought this back to make himself feel better. It was working pretty well. Mr. Jeon was sitting in the island looking very frustrated while speaking on phone. His hand was resting on his ear on the top of his head. He was speaking low, but the words still came out sharp and fast. Mrs. Jeon, he refusing to listen to me. I'm trying to tell him everything about this beautiful young boy, but he wouldn't even listen to me. They didn't even have to fall in love. Why can't they be just friends? It's an arranged marriage. I'm not expecting love. What I am expecting is friendliness, and he can't even give me that. He can't even give me a basic human characteristic. Thank you, baby. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Love you. It was quite obvious that he was talking about Taehyung. So my future husband isn't a big fan of me, huh? He actually says out loud he wonders where this sudden courage came from. He's just being stubborn. Hopefully, my wife can get some sense into him. He has always been good at that, Mr. Jian replied. He his head dropped down on the counter with his arm covering his face. He is tired of his son's accent. It's okay, I'm not too happy about this either. I just prefer seeing the positive out of this experience. They had a hard time finding the right words for what he is going through. Why don't you give me your son's number so I can call him? Mr. Jian gave Taehyung a polite smile and he write down his son's number on a napkin. Taehyung never really planned to call him though, at least not yet. Taehyung is still waiting for the dust to settle. A phone ring. A man quickly picked it up to start speaking. Officer Hun speaking, he said curtly. You have a job. Report to Seoul tomorrow. The boss spoke, then hung up. The man with his bags already packed walked out of the hotel room and into his expensive out of place car to drive away. He woke up and next morning to an empty room. He basically took everything out of his room except of necessities. Today he was planning on meeting with an agent on selling the house. He is planning on having an estate sales as well to sell half the furniture once he packs what he wants. Otherwise, Mrs. Lee told the young boy that Mr. Jeon was gone for the day, but he will come back in time of dinner. Honey, Mrs. Lee addresses the Mr. Jeon has asked me to follow you to New York and be a cook and maid at his son's place. I would be, of course, accept, but I wanted to ask you first. Mrs. Lee held a secret smile and eyes held a bright sign. She was hopeful. She has known him since he was a very young little boy and has helped him grow into this beautiful boy he is today. She would follow him to the end of the earth, even if they couldn't pay her anymore because of her. They is like to his son. They felt the real emotions at this point, the same one as Mrs. Lee hoped. He didn't show this emotion at all. They couldn't let people see how he's feeling. He couldn't wear his heart on his sleeve because that is how people control you, break you and hurt you. Instant letting Taehyung face light up and smile wide. He gave a small smile, polite, and said, I would love that. I could use a familiar face. Mrs. Lee ran over to the boy and squeezed him in a tight hug. They truly did love each other like a mother and son. The doorbell ruined the moment. Mrs. Lee was busy with breakfast, so they took it upon himself to answer the door. Standing on the doorsteps was a man not much older than him, a man with dark blonde hair and brown eyes that almost looked blue. His hair was fairly long enough to be pulled into a man bun, just as Taehyung. He was slightly taller than they and wore a wig button down shirt, dress pant, and a long black trench coat. He had dark circle around his eyes and a slightly crooked nose. He was smoking a cigarette when he opened the door, but put it out under his shirt once he addresses him. Can I help you, sir? They asked, and the mysterious man, yes, I believe you can. You can call me Han, and I am the new investor in your father's mother. May I come in? He spoke with a little emotion, as Taehyung usually did. His tone implied that Han was going to get what he wants and doesn't care who got in his way. He was all business. This scared Tae a little, not just because Han reminded him of his father. I thought the police was handling it. Taehyung asked him, not wanting to let him onto his house. Your father has a strange clause in his will that if he was aware about his murder, the company and I work for would investigation this. I am the best one in the company, so I will be handling the investigation for now on. So please let me in this time and post pass Taehyung onto the room. Can you please show me where you found your father? And read onto the police record of Taehyung's side of the story. They was asleep when the attacker came into the house. It must have been someone that his father knew because Mr. Lee let the attacker in. They was woken up with a loud scream, to which he rushed down to find his father with many stab wounds. Mrs. Lee holding a gun and an open front door. His father was unconscious when they was holding him and died in his arm. The maid reported hearing a sound of a struggle. She grabbed Mr. Kim's gun and confronted the person. There was nothing that could have done. Mr. Kim was dead once he was stabbed 10 times and the masked killer ran off. They ultimately led Han to the spot where he found his father a little bit away from the kitchen and the entrance in the living room. Now, who do you think killed your father? You must be the one of closest to him. Han says he couldn't be more wrong. They laughed a little internally. They repeated the same detail as once he told the police. I'm not sure. My father kept me out of the business, but I didn't know that he had many enemies. I can show you his file to see if his records show any potential motive for enemies. My father kept very good record for everything. They sounded unemotional and robotic. This put a sore taste in his detective's mouth. There was something going on there. Taehyung led him to his father's office. Please let me know if you need anything else. Feel free to look through everything. They left the man to look through all his files and went back to the kitchen to eat breakfast. He soon retreated to the other room to his father's house to go through the pack important and valuable item away. These items will be placed onto storage of his house. This took all morning. There weren't much in house that he felt had importance. However, there was a family painting and a favorite chair to sit in, his mother's mirror and other items like that. He was disturbed by the loud screaming downstairs. How dare you kick me out of my house? You left this place to me and I'm going to sell it and keep all the money. I don't care what this. I don't care about his of son. Taehyung reached downstairs and saw his dad's old assistant and current girlfriend Ruby. They had been dating for some time and 6 months. It only lasted so long because their relationship was technically open. They knew that he received no money from his father. Taehyung was only mentioned in the will as an item to be treated for. He assumed that the house would be left for him and he would be able to get some money from selling it, but he was wrong. Ruby got the most money in the end and the house. They thought he would be disappointed, but he wasn't. He knew that his father wasn't a good man and that he hated Taehyung's guts. Tae is very thankful that he is moving away into a home and wouldn't have to find himself on the streets. Tae wasn't in mood to deal with Ruby, so he put on a mask of a different person. Ruby, get the heck out. I do not care that you own this house. This will is still where I live, and I am going to stay until I am not ready. I am ready to leave, he told the young battery girl. Well, based on my boyfriend's will, you have until the end of this week to leave so that I can open the house to buy us. Ruby shouted back to Thay, then turned to her very tall hills and left the house. Thay couldn't help but go on and put his head in his hands. He really did not want to deal with her again. It was a disaster. He can't wait to move away and never see this Ruby again. Right now, the only bad thing to this arranged marriage is the fact that he has to marry someone he has never met. But it is also good that he has somewhere to go. He is moving to his favorite city, has a manager to find him a job, has a stable home, is living this crusted house. On top of it all, Mrs. Lee gets to follow him there and collected all the important files in Mrs. Kim's office, including a copy of his will. He was the Ruby girl shouted at Taehyung and he saw the Ruby girl shouted at Taehyung and saw motive in this Ruby girl. She was left everything that has monetary value from Mrs. Kim. She could have murdered Mr. Kim to gain all his money. Once Hunt saw Thay slip away into a room, he rushed out to follow this Ruby girl. He catch her going to her car. Back at Kim's mansion, they packed the most valuable things into a large car that Mrs. Lee would be driving. These were the items for most important to him and the ones he had to placing in a store. Right as the boy drove off, Mr. Jeon came back in his rental car. Rather than asking where he went, Thang said, I am ready to move tomorrow. Okay then, Mr. Jan replied, barely out of his car. I will get everything in order. Would you like to have the marriage taken place a week from now? No, I would like it the day after I arrive. To be continued. So everyone, what do you think? What is gonna be the Taekook marriage life, and how is Jungkook going to behave with Taehyung? How will Taehyung deal with it? We will see this all in the next episode. I would hope you will love this. See you again. Bye bye.